Welcome to the Antioch Podcast, designed to nurture knowledge, cultivate creativity, heal the heart, and strengthen for service. Thanks for listening, and welcome home.
When Colette was 6, turning 7, she was in and out of the hospital and fighting for her life. And it was a really hard time as parents, as I'm sure you could imagine. It was also kind of a surprisingly hard time as a pastor. I remember one of the times she was taken into the ER. I was in the beginning of doing a wedding. And I had this strong thing inside of me. What do I do right now? Do I just leave the couple as they're about to walk down the aisle and be like, well, good luck, find someone? Or do I stay here but then not be there for my daughter as they're checking her into the ER? And then there's all the doubts that come and all of this frustrations. And then there's all of the people who start asking, where's your God now? It's the classic, most of you probably never seen this, but the original, the 10 Commandments, where he asks Charlton Heston, who's playing Moses, where's your God now? I'm Moses. And just this challenge of all these bad things are happening. Where's your God now? And I remember in that time, my pain was so intense and I was so overwhelmed that it was really difficult to drive. But I had to get to the hospital. And my friend Brian called me up, and they lived about an hour and a half away at the time. He said, I'm on my way to your house to pick you up, to take you over to the hospital, and to, we'll get some stuff, whatever you guys need, and, we'll be there. And then his wife, I remember, ran to the store. I believe it was Jenny, ran to the store, and Corey just moved into the hospital. They didn't give her permission, but good luck getting her out of the room. And but she didn't bring anything, so Jenny went to Target, I think it was, and bought some maxi dresses and bought all of the things you need when you're living a place where you didn't expect to live in a place. And then we had other friends who would reach out and they would bring us food and they would bring us whatever. And here's the thing I learned in that season. When I tried to pray, it was hard. I felt like I had a really hard time connecting with what God was doing. Why is my baby girl fighting for her life? Why are the doctors saying she's pretending and accusing us of it? Why won't they listen to Tiffany, who was a student at the time and had correctly diagnosed what was wrong, but would refuse to listen to her because she was just a student. She didn't know what she was talking about. God, why is all this bad stuff? And all we're doing is we're trying to love your people, and we're trying to be good pastors. Why is this? Where are you? And in that moment, it was so abundantly clear where God was. Where is your God now? He was in the face of Brian Stavali, who drove an hour and a half to my house to drive me to the hospital because I couldn't drive through my tears. He was in Jenny going and shopping for dresses and intimates and toothpaste and deodorant. He was in my friends coming and bringing us food. He was in Aaron Brown painting a prophetic painting of Colette carrying a sword with a toy bucket on her head in a tutu dress to remind her to keep fighting. This morning, as I'm struggling to figure out where am I supposed to go with the message, he's in all of you that come up and you pray for me. You guys, this is what community is all about. So when we're talking about becoming us, which is the focus, that's what the series we're in right now. We, by God's design, find him most frequently in one another. I'm going to read to you again this quote from Dallas Willard. The aim of God in history is the creation of an all-inclusive community of loving persons, with himself included in that community as its prime sustainer and most glorious inhabitant. That's what we're doing. This is what we're all about. This is what the church is all about. The church's primary function isn't just about making sure we're teaching good doctrine, but we better be doing that. The church's primary function isn't just to make sure we're teaching through Scripture properly, but we better be doing that. The church's primary function is caught up in the greatest commandments: to love God with everything and to love one another. As Paul said it in Romans 12:10, to be devoted to one another in love. Or as Jesus prayed for us, his main prayer, the time he's praying and sweating drops of blood, the intensity in that prayer wasn't his fear of the cross. He chose the cross. The intensity in his prayer was for us. John 17:20 and 21, my prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. This is how the world will know God's love. This is how the world will know that we are his disciples. That is the primary focus of the church. To love God and love each other. To be a living community where we're edifying and encouraging and building one another up, and we're not giving up on each other, and we're pouring into each other, and we're there for each other, because you are going to be weak at times, and you're going to need each other to be strong. You are going to doubt sometimes, and you're going to have to stand on the faith of your friends. Just like the friends who tore through the roof of the building to get their friend to Jesus. Remember when Jesus healed the person, he said it was because of their faith that he was healed. Sometimes you are broken and you need a healing, and the only thing that's going to get you there is the faith of the community that you have around you. It's becoming us. Community, deep community of unity isn't just a good idea. It's God's design. It's his plan. And we've somehow turned church into like a culture club. I think everyone, this is kind of a bold statement to make, but I think, if I'm right, that everyone in here deeply desires deep community. Even those of us who are extreme introverts. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the deep introverts are the ones who desire the deep community more than anyone else, because they can't do the not deep community. That's really awkward and uncomfortable for them. But the really deep friendships, the really close connections, the community of unity is what we seek. And it's what we're called to. But it's hard because we feel so frequently like we don't fit in. And maybe I don't want to speak for you. I'll just speak for myself. There have definitely been so many times in life where I felt like I didn't fit in, where I felt excluded, when I felt like I was outside of the circle, when I felt unvalued, when I felt uninvited, even worse, disinvited. And all along, I felt like it shouldn't be this hard. So what's wrong with me? Gosh, I'm being way too vulnerable today. Let's just close with worship. It's good for you. Oh my gosh. Thanks. I think part of the problem is that we haven't understood community well. And I'm learning, and today's going to be more of a discipleship day than anything, I think. See where it goes. I think there are two keys that we need to really understand community. Maybe two misconceptions that we can dispel that will help us to really establish community well. So let me go through some of this. The first one is this idea that our community can be everyone around us, and that everyone around us has the same access and the same connection, and we should have the same deep relationship with every single person around us. There was a study done by a gentleman named Robin Dunbar. And in this study, he was looking at connection. He was looking at relationships, where healthy relationships are formed and what they look like and what we can handle. So here's what he found. And I'm going to kind of extrapolate a little bit and apply this to the church and the community we've been called to. There were different levels of community that we could find ourselves in. If you see these as expanding circles, that might be helpful. The most intimate grouping of connection that you have, of community that you have, and let me say, family is outside of this. This is community. This isn't family. So it's different. But for community, you have what I'm going to call your fam. These are the friends that are so close that they're family. They're very, very intimate, very, very close connections that you have. Typically, you have 3 to 5 of these people. That's about as much as you can handle. Jesus had 3, John, Peter, and James. He had the 3 that he would always take with him. It was the 3 that he would talk to about things that he didn't talk to any of the others about. Now, he still had his family. He still had his father that he would go and talk to. That's different. He had those friends, that community, that close, small community of 4 people, Jesus and the 3. And I was trying to think of a way of how to describe what these people are like. These are the people that you can ask to pick you up from LAX during rush hour. That's the people in this circle. You can ask to take you or pick you up from LAX. And they won't want to. No one ever wants to. But they will absolutely, of course, I'm here for you. Proverbs 18:24 says this: "One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." That's what we're talking about. This inner circle, this very tight-knit group of 3 to 5 people. These are your closest friends. These are the people who have keys to your house, and they have keys to your heart. They have full access to everything that you have. Anything that belongs to you, they are welcome to, and they don't even have to ask. These are what we used to call upstairs friends. Like, they were the ones that were allowed to go upstairs where our bedrooms were, and like, it's a mess up there because we had people coming over, so we just threw stuff upstairs. These are upstairs, so like, oh, you could use the bathroom upstairs, that's fine. No one else can, but you guys can. These are upstairs friends. They're very, very close, and they have access. You share things with these friends that you would never share with others. And honestly, that you probably shouldn't share with others. And that's important for us to hear. I think the problem we run into is we feel like we have to be completely vulnerable with everyone or we're inauthentic. This is part of the problem. No, you have your fam, and these are the ones that know you better than anyone else. They probably may know you better than yourself sometimes. And these are the most important voices for you to listen to when difficult decisions need to be made. This is the circle where confession belongs. Now, we're going to talk about confession eventually here, because it's just one of those things I've been studying for probably a year and a half now. And it's something that we have completely neglected in the Protestant church. And we're clearly commanded to do it in Scripture. So we're going to be talking about that, but confession belongs in this group. If we move one step out from there, this is usually around 15 people in number. So you have your 5, that's your fam, and then you have your 15 or so, that's your tribe. So a lot of times Corey and I will talk about, like, you need to find your tribe. People need to find their tribe. Our kids need to find their tribe. Your tribe, Luke 9, verses 1 and 2 says this. When Jesus had called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and to cure diseases. And he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. So Jesus had the 12, but he also had the women that were in the group. That was his tribe, the ones that did life together. They traveled everywhere together. They accomplished things together. They had a common goal and a common purpose. Trying to think through for your tribe, these are the people you could ask them to pick you up from John Wayne Airport. Still inconvenient, nowhere near as bad as LAX. Maybe Burbank. Burbank's a little bit of a stretch, but probably Burbank, you could get as far as that. Maybe San Diego or Palm Springs. LAX definitely out of the question for the 15. The 15, that's the kind of the group we're talking about here. They're still incredibly close. They're not the fam. They're not the 3 or the 5. But they'll help guide you in everyday life decisions. These are the people that you're living everyday life with. They know what's going on with your family. They know what's going on with your kids. They know your dreams. They know what you're thinking about doing before you do it. These are the people that you live everyday life with. Now, when really difficult times come, this is your support group. The 3 to 5 are the ones that you're listening to very intensely and you're talking to all the time. The 15 are the ones providing the rest of the support that you need, that the other ones can't. And the most important thing about your tribe is the group that helps you to accomplish your purpose and call. It's going to be very challenging for you to accomplish what God has called you to without the assistance of your tribe. They're going to be the ones that encourage you when you're discouraged. They're going to be the ones that support you when you fall down. They're going to be the ones that keep egging you on and pushing you on. They're going to be the ones that don't let you give up on yourself. They will feed your dreams and they will listen to your vision. And they will remind you of it all the time, sometimes annoyingly. But that's what they do. That's your tribe. Now, when we go beyond the tribe, according to Dunbar, the next big grouping is around 50 people, and I'm going to call this your village. So from your tribe, you also have your village. Luke 6:13 says this: when morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. So don't miss what I'm saying here. He called his disciples to him, and he chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. Jesus had more than just the 12 following him. You understand this, right? He had disciples that were following him. He had a larger group, probably around 50 in number, that would go with him everywhere that he went. And these were the ones who were listening to him and learning from him. Now, from that, he chose the 12. These are the primary ones I'm pouring into. These are the ones that are closest to me. These are the ones that are with me everywhere I go. But Jesus, as a rabbi in that time, would have his Talmudim, and the Talmudim would follow him where he went. So, of these ones, so for you, your village, these are the people you can ask to pick you up from Ontario. Like, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. You're not living everyday life with them. You're not super close with them, but you're friends. This is what we usually used to refer to as just your friends, your friend group, which means very little now because it got very confused by Facebook. You know about each other's life, you celebrate with each other highs, and you're there for each other in the lows. These are the people that you would invite over for like a big party or for like a wedding. These are the people that make the wedding list, is your village. Or they're the people that will also help you with a big project. Like if you're moving, you can tap into your village to help you with that. Like the other groups, they better be there. Like your fam, they better show up first person and they are bringing a truck. Your next group of people, your 15, they're for sure going to be there. They're going to make sure that everything happens. They're going to be there where you're picking up the stuff for the move, and they're going to drive over to the house and help you unload, and then they're going to stick around and help you put stuff away. The village are the ones that'll like, yeah, I could come and help you load everything up, or I could come and I can help you unload everything, but they're not staying for the entire time and helping out with everything. Does this helping? Do you understand? This is important for you to understand because we keep putting everyone in one category, and then we get frustrated because we have expectations from the fam that we're putting on the tribe, or expectations from the tribe that we're putting on the village. And then we get frustrated because they're not meeting our level of expectation, often uncommunicated expectations. Let me keep going. The next big grouping that we have is around 150 people. 150 people is your community. This is about as many people's names as you can actually know comfortably. Now, there's some people, it's different for some people, but for the most part, 150 people is about as many people as you can know, which, by the way, I suggest is the ideal size for a church. Churches probably shouldn't be bigger than 150 people. Now, maybe I'm just saying that because we have a smaller church. I think there's a lot to support this. Now, don't get me wrong, there were definitely massive churches, and the birth of Christianity, 3,000 people were saved. But they all met in houses. They all broke up into different houses, into different places. You don't have churches larger than this amount until very recent times. This is the group where you gain the power to make the significant change in your community and your world. That's what you get from your community. We are better together. We can accomplish more as 150 than we can with just 50 or 15 or with 5. There's so much power behind the community. If a church is much larger than 150, what you will see happen every single time is you will have churches within the church. Or if you don't have that, you have a lot of people that are coming and feel disconnected and never feel like they belong. So here's why I bring up all of this. This is a whole lot of information just to kind of get to this point here. Meaningful change in your life, truly meaningful change, can only happen in the first two groups. If you're really going to be transformed through community, if I could say it this way, if you're going to see the face of God in your friends, it's going to be the friends from those first two circles. The first two circles are the ones that would come over and drive you to the hospital and buy you clothing and do everything that you need done. The first two groups is where that happens. The problem is, for the most part, when we look at our spiritual life and we look at how we do church, we put all of our emphasis on the latter two groups. We expect you to have all this drastic life change because of the message you heard on Sunday morning with the community. Because it just doesn't work that way. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes God comes through. There's been times I've listened to a podcast and God completely changed my life because of the podcast and I was all alone. But for the most part, true change, true spiritual growth is not going to come because you're part of the community at large. It's going to be because of the commitment and the devotion that you have to the two smaller groups, to your fam and to your tribe. That's where the change is going to come. Going to church Sunday morning isn't enough to make the change you're looking for in your life, if the only engagement you have with it is with the community. Now, if you take what you learned on Sunday morning and you process it with your tribe, then it can make a difference. This is why we have to be intentional about finding community, about doing whatever it takes, because we're never truly going to be able to grow. We're never truly going to be able to become unless we start investing there, unless we start being very intentional and very serious. But this takes a long obedience in the same direction, and that's what's hard about it. There was about a year ago, I was tired. It was probably almost 2 years ago now. Yeah, 2 years ago now, I was tired of having to buy new Birkenstocks because Birkenstocks are unnecessarily expensive. I don't understand. But mine, like I wear mine every day, and because I'm like Jesus, because Jesus clearly wore Birkenstocks, my Air Moseses. So the soles would wear out, right? The bottoms of them. So these ones I'm wearing right now, these are the third soles that I've put on them. But now the cork's starting to break, which is not good. It means I'm going to have to get new ones soon. But here's what I learned in trying to replace the soles of Birkenstocks. A lessons from the cobbler moment, right? They have stuff out there that is fast-acting shoe glue. And it says fast bonding. Every time I tried using fast bonding shoe glue, it bonded fast, but it also fell apart fast, really quickly. It never lasted. You know what works? It's the only thing that really works if you're trying to repair shoes, especially Birkenstocks, in case you want to do this in the future. Contact cement. You know how contact cement works? It's very slow. It's annoyingly slow. What you have to do is you have to put, it's kind of like, for those of you who are old like me, remember in kindergarten you had to get paste and it came in that jar and you took it out and it had the brush. It was the greatest thing ever. I miss paste. And there was always the kid in your class that ate the paste and he got in trouble, and so just weird stories. And then you learned you could put food coloring in the paste. And Sorry, I don't know why I'm talking about paste, doesn't matter. So contact cement works like that. So the way it works is you take the contact cement and you put the contact cement on one surface and then on the other surface. Now it's wet and it's really sticky, but you can't put the things together that you're trying to glue together at that moment. It won't hold. What you have to do is you have to let the contact cement really get into the surfaces, and it has to begin to dry out. Now, once it's dried out some and it's soaked into the surfaces, it gets really tacky. It's no longer wet, it's really tacky. At that moment, you take it and you push them together and you do this little friction thing and you have to hold it together for a while. And it takes it probably 24 to 48 hours for it to dry. And it's still not fully dry, but it's for the most part done at that point. And at that point, it's held together. Once you do that, the bond that's made is very difficult to break. It holds tremendously. It's incredibly powerful. You guys, we're trying to do fast bonding community. Where it's like, well, we both signed up for this community group and we've been doing this for 3 weeks. We should have this incredible connection now that will never fall apart. As it takes years. Because the living life together, the experiencing experiences together has to get into you first. And it has to begin to solidify who you are. And then in your connection to each other, it begins to solidify and begins to hold strongly. This is a problem because the average person, according to the research, only stays in a church for 5 to 7 years. And this is for adults, not just college kids, not people in their 20s that are getting new jobs and having to move. On average, the average person, actually it was the median, if you want to be specific, Colette, the median is 5 to 7 years, which means half of the people are in the church for less than that. 5 to 7 years is not enough time for the contact cement to fully dry. It's starting, it's getting there. You know what else is interesting? The average amount of time that denominations will keep a pastor in the pulpit before moving them to a new community is about 7 years. 5 to 7 years also. So not only are the people constantly changing, remember when we started the church, we had one of our mentors tell us, you need to prepare yourself for something that you're not going to believe when I tell you. You're going to have a new church every 5 years. And we said, there's no way. But it's true. You guys, you cannot. Here's an interesting factoid. They also did some research in looking at how many years does a pastor in a community feel like they're finally making substantial change and growth. How long do you think it was? At about 8 to 10 years. Which means right when the contact cement is just about ready to be pushed together and held together, we're breaking it apart and we're trying to start all over somewhere else. How long does it take for a fruit tree to bear good fruit once it's planted? About 5 to 7 years. And then the harvest begins. I suggest to you, and listen, what I'm not saying in all this is that you shouldn't ever change the church you're going to. God calls us places and you have to be obedient to his call. Life changes and you get called to different jobs and different purposes, and that's totally natural, it's totally healthy. I'm just saying maybe we should think about this a little bit. And maybe we should be a bit more intentional about community. Because if we really want to see change, we're going to have to be committed to community over the long haul. It's not going to be easy. And if it's fast, it's going to fall apart fast. But if we can invest a decade to community, and not even necessarily to this church, but to your community, to the people you're doing life with, don't give up on each other, especially when it gets hard, because that's when you're learning how to love. Shared life experience is the most important capital in a relationship. And it takes years to develop. I just want to share this one other thing with you to consider. At this point, Corey and I have been married for 24 years. And we've been together. I know, I'm such a saint. It's amazing that I put up with her this long. Thank you for the laughter. Love that even my kids are like, whatever. That's crazy. I could never have the relationship that I have with her. I could never have the closeness that I have with her with anyone else ever. And I don't know why I feel the need to say this, but I think our culture has really developed this trade-in for a new model kind of mentality when it comes to marriage. And I just want to speak against this, and I want to give just this idea, this simple idea. There's a book called The Severe Mercy. And in this book, it's one of our favorite books, he talks about the shining barrier. Let me read this quote from it. And he's talking about how they're going to have whatever children's book that she read when she was a child, I'm going to read now. And then anything that she enjoys doing, I'm going to learn how to enjoy doing it. And all the experiences that we had independently, we're going to share that with each other. So we have more of these connections, more of these lines, more of these strings that connect us, more of these strands, more of these shared experiences. And here's the quote. That way, we shall create 1,000 strands, great and small, that will link us together. Then we shall be so close that it would be impossible, unthinkable for either of us to suppose that we could ever recreate such closeness with anyone else. Corey and I have devoted the past 24 years, and even longer than that, to building these 1,000 strands, to where it's unthinkable that anyone could have the closeness that we have with each other. There's no way we could have that with someone else. You can never make new old friends. Be intentional, church, about community, about building these 1,000 strands of connection with each other, walking through highs and lows, going through the tough times and celebrating the fun times together. Don't grow weary in building your connection with one another, because we'll never be able to accomplish God's call on our lives unless we can do this. It's a long obedience in the same direction, and it's not easy. But it's the only way it happens. It's the only way we get to bear a harvest of fruit of what God has placed in us. So for week 2, let's be slow drying contact cement with each other. My challenge for you this week, all this entire series, I'm challenging you to get together and have table fellowship. Have at least 2 other people that you're meeting with, hopefully more than that. Maybe you know who your 15 is. Meet with them. But be intentional this week. Make the time. No, you can't make time. Take the time. Invest the time. Sacrifice the time for the sake of building connection with each other. Gather around the table for a meal, and then I encourage you to stick around for a couple hours and maybe go for a walk together. And here's the question I want you to consider this week. Last week, I wanted you to talk about what does friendship look like in different seasons of your life. Here's your question for this time. I want you to have a define the relationship moment, not with each other, but what category of community that we talked about or that I just mentioned, which category are you most comfortable with? And which category are you least comfortable with? Think about that. Some of you are very good with the fam, with the five, but the thought of being connected to community just gives you the chills. And some of you, it's the other way around. I'm fine in the crowd, but don't put me in a room with 3 other people. Talk about that and try to figure out what's going on with that. What fears are hiding behind the category you like the least? And then the other things is commit. I encourage you all to commit to trying to get here at 9 o'clock. 9 is on time. 9 is when we gather. 10 is when we worship. So be here at 9. I wasn't here today till 10:03 because I was working on 3 messages. And stay late. Go out to eat afterwards. The other thing is this is the book that we're encouraging you to read during this series, Life Together. It's a very small book. So if you want a copy, I think they are I think these ones were $13.50 on Amazon. That's where I got them. I have 3 of them here. They're $10. You could just donate it to the church. So just do it on Venmo or put money in the back or whatever. So there's 3 of them here. Get these. There's also in the emails, if you get the emails, there's a free PDF of it. So you can also read it that way if you'd like to. You could also find it online. I think that's it. How are we doing? Okay. I'm going to go into an introvert coma after this because that was way too vulnerable for me. Listen, let's not grow weary in doing good. Let us not give up on meeting together with one another, as some are in the habit of doing. Not because it would be really cool to have friends, but because we need a community of unity to accomplish what Christ has called us to. This is part of the calling. Before you can be a missionary, before you could be a pastor, before you could be any calling that God places on you, you have to be a person of community. You have to be a member of the body of Christ, connected to one another. All of us members needing each other, relying on each other, edifying and encouraging one another, and holding one another together. We got to fight for it because it's not going to just happen. Let me pray. Lord, I thank you for the gift of community. And I hate that in talking about it, it almost seems like a burden. It's not. It's the greatest gift we have. That we have community with one another and we can have community with you. To be one with you and the Father and the Spirit. Jesus, what a gift that you've given us. That you've made available to us at the cross. So Lord, I just ask now that you would help us to love one another well. That you would help us to be brave this week and courageous enough to make difficult choices, to be intentional about connection. And let us do it all for the sake of your name and your renown. And when the world sees the love we have for one another, the real love, the real community of unity, as the world sees us become us, they would know that we are your disciples. And they would hunger and thirst to become part of that too. Make us one. Father, Spirit, Son. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks for listening. To get connected, you can find us online at iamantioch.com or join us Sunday morning in Riverside, California.